Hey folks, it's time for the quote of the day, and today we are going to be quoting, in my opinion, one of maybe like two of the greatest fictional world builders, or I guess you could say universe builders, to have ever lived. I mean, obviously, one of them is someone I've quoted before, is J.R.R. Tolkien. Today is not his birthday. This guy's a little bit more science fictiony, if you will. But I think that if you really look at it, you'll understand that in the scope of influence, it's hard to find anybody that is more influential than Gene Roddenberry. Now, Gene Roddenberry, for those of you that somehow don't know this, is the creator of Star Trek, and today is his birthday. Now, it's kind of tough, right? Like he's one of these people that when you look at his creation and you look at the effect of his creation, if you look at the influence he's had over really honestly the entire world with what he created with his ideas, and you look at some of the things in his life, you're like, oh, this guy was great, but he was extremely problematic as a person, as an individual. So we're going to talk about a little bit about both of those, but I got to tell you, this is one of my favorite quotes. I think one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard, one of my favorite quotes I've ever shared. I mean that quite literally. Um, Gene Roddenberry, without a doubt, is one of the most influential people to have ever lived, and I mean that based on where we are today. There is a good portion of things that we enjoy that Gene Roddenberry and a few of the other writers on Star Trek really did foresee, right? Like they are the reason why you're watching me on a phone right now. And I'm not saying they had the science, but they were the inspiration for a lot of the things that you see nowadays. They were an inspiration for a good chunk of the space exploration we've done. They inspired through their fiction a reality that we live in today. That's not oversold. There's scientists and researchers and explorers, still space explorers, that will tell you that the only reason that they started doing what they did, the reason that it piqued their interest, was because of Star Trek. There are people that watched Star Trek, saw something on there, and were like, we should try to make that a real fucking thing. Like, this is not an exaggeration. I'm not making this up. They will tell you that themselves. And I think that when you really look at that and you understand the profound influence that this man has had on our reality, on just everyday living, really everyday everything, it could be hard to come to terms with who he was as a person. Again, I'm gonna try to be diplomatic about the way that I say this, but Gene Roddenberry, for all of his great influence and for all of the wonderful things that he created with his mind, and the fact that he was a fucking war hero and a hero in general, in some cases in his early life as a pilot, and the things that he did, he was, how would we say this, a disgusting pervert. he he was a womanizing pervert. There are literally like interview tapes of him talking about how much he liked it when, the fact that he had daughters, because he liked to, it's like he was like Aqualung, sitting on the park bench watching little girls with bad intent. Like that's kind of like, it was about Gene Roddenberry. It had to be, right? Like he talks about this is something that is pretty well known. He slept with so many different like starlets and things like that. What did you ever wonder why like all of the female crew members of the Enterprise all wore little itty bitty tiny skirts? It's because Gene Roddenberry thought that it was important that he be able to, as they said, this is a literal quote, perv on them. And so he would put them in these little skimpy outfits, and it just kind of stayed. It was just became part of the thing. And it was all because of the way that for all of the progressive ways of seeing things in Star Trek, he was kind of a dirty old man. I mean, he died at 70, but basically from the time he was 30 on, he was a dirty old man. And I mean, like part of me kind of gets that, right? Like as a dirty old man myself, but I'm not that kind of dirty where I'm literally perving on people, right? So I think that it's important that we like I always try to talk about the bad with the good, and the reality is that he was very egocentric. He was very, like, he really hated it when other people would start to gain a voice or gain power when it came to Star Trek. He was very protective of it. He was a womanizer who cheated on both of his wives and would have, just like I said, many relationships going at once and lying to women, and like he wasn't a good guy when it came to women. And I think that it's really important that people understand that. That being said, the things that he wrote and the influences that he had. I mean, you're talking about Star Trek, who, had Nichelle Nichols on it. Like, that's a very important thing to understand. At one point in time, somebody asked him about the fact that he had, Sulu was an Asian man, and Nichelle Nichols was a black woman, and there was Chekhov, who was a Russian at the height of the Cold War. He had this, like, cast that was just so crazy and diverse, and people would ask him about it, and he said, this show takes place in the 23rd century. If by then we don't have the ability to come together as black and white, we won't be there won't be humans. And like, I think that's a really important thing to understand. Like, for all of his womanizing ways, he was also very, very progressive in pretty much everything else, and wanted to see this world that he had created in his head. Wanted us to be moving beyond poverty, moving beyond social bullshit breaking us up, and governments fighting each other, and really find a way to explore and be better. I think that when you look at what was in his heart when it comes to these things, I wouldn't say you can forgive him, but you can at least understand that sometimes you do have to take the bad with the good. And like, as much as we want to find, perfect people to lift up and say, oh, look, he was wonderful and everything he did, you're not going to be able to do that. Sometimes you have to look at the art and find the artist within the art, because the artist in reality is falls woefully short of anything you'd actually want. And that was the case with Gene Roddenberry. Now, as far as his quote, like I said, one of my favorite quotes I've ever shared. I think that it's very, very important. And in today's world, where there are so many people out there on social media and all over the world that, sell self-help books and things like that, they try to tell you about how easy it is and the cheat code that gets you through it. Gene Roddenberry said this, and I think that it really does kind of remind you of what it's all about, at least in my opinion. Gene Roddenberry once said, "It is the struggle itself that is most important. We must strive to be more than we are. It does not matter that we will not reach our ultimate goal. The effort itself yields its own reward." I'll read that again. It is the struggle itself that is the most important. We must strive to be more than we are. It does not matter that we will not reach our ultimate goal. The effort itself yields its own reward. Think about that. Think about that in terms of just what you hear every day on social media. Think about that, how different that is. The effort is the reward. The fact that you get to try, the fact that we can try, that we show up every day to try to be better people, that we learn and we grow and we try and we struggle, and it hurts and it sucks and there's pain, and the toil that we go through every day to try to become a better version of ourselves and to try to elevate the people around us and bring society up just a notch. That's the point. The struggle is the point. We may never see. You're not planting a tree for you to sit under. You're planting a tree to provide shade for future generations, as the saying goes. And that's the whole point of this. The struggle to find a better world, to be better people. This is what Gene Roddenberry was about. This is what his vision was about. This is what Star Trek is about. It's about boldly going where no one has gone before. And I think that when you really take that to heart, and you understand these characters, and you understand the stories, and you see the allegory in them, and you see the way that they are parallels to so much of everyday life, it is without a doubt an honor to be able to quote him, because he has shaped the world that we live in today. And honestly, his pervy, dirty hands probably should have been on more of our reality, just not the part where he has the ability to affect women's lives. Happy birthday to Gene Roddenberry. And to the rest of you, please take care of yourself and take care of others. I'll talk to you.